Okay, hi everyone. Today we're going to go ahead and work on the final review 2. So this is the second part of your final review. And just question number 1, we're going to go through all 19 questions. So A, B, C. A is equal to 8, B is equal to 2, C is equal to positive pi over 5. Positive pi over 5. So we want to make sure that we know how to interpret these values, and that's our amplitude, which is going to be a positive 8. Our period is 2 pi over b, so it's 2 pi over 2 is just pi. And if you write pi on your answer, it actually will accept it as pi. And the last one, phase shift. Now everyone, oh my gosh, so many people kept messing up on phase shift. Phase shift is not just c. It's x equals to c over b. You have to copy c over b. So it's pi over 5 divided by 2. Multiply by the reciprocal of 2 over 1. Pi over 5 times 1 over 2 is pi over 10. And that's what you would write, pi over 10. So many people kept messing up on phase shift. You guys would just copy. That is not right. C is not your phase shift. C helps you get your phase shift. And the phase shift is x equals to c over b. Like, no joke. Like, people lost points after points after points for that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and talk about graphing this graph now. Oh wait, so backwards. We're going to talk about writing the equation. A, in this case, let's say this is sine of bx minus c plus d. So the first one we want to look for is d. That's always our easiest one. D is the middle of this graph. Between -5 and 3, what's the middle of it? You could guess that's -1. That looks like the middle, right? And you can verify by counting 1, 2, 3, 4 up, and 1, 2, 3, 4 down. Sure. So we know the amplitude, or our d value, our midline, is going to be -1. Another algebraic way is we say, hey, what's the middle between 3 and -5? Well, that's -2, and we divide this by 2 to find the midpoint is -1. That's another way of finding the midline. Midline is also our d value. The period, how long does it take me to start and stop my graph? If I start at 0, if I go through one full graph, see, we stop at 2. So the period is 2. It's that simple. We just have to know what each of these terms mean. The amplitude is how many spaces up and how many spaces down. I think we counted 4 steps up and 4 steps down. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the top, and 1, 2, 3, 4 to the bottom. All right. And that's all she wrote. You can double check that if you want. Next question is for us to now, last one I thought was a right equation. This one's writing an equation. So y is equal to a sine kx plus c, or cosine. So we make a choice. Is this going to be a sine graph or cosine graph? If I look at 0, this looks like a sine graph to me. So why not make a sine graph? If the graph started on top, that would be a cosine. But let's make it easy on me. Let's say this will be a sine graph. What is the amplitude? Amplitude looks like it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Are you guys cool with 4 up? Double check. Going down. 1, 2, 3, 4 down. So we know our a value is 4. Our d value, you guys can probably see where the middle line is. It's going to be at -1. How long does it take me to finish one graph? Now here's the hard part. If this is my starting point, we could go forward, but then do you see how we get lost along the way? We don't know, but we can go backwards. And we're going to stop at, that looks like to me, does that look like -10 to you? Yeah. So it took me a period of 10 to finish. 10 to finish. So we have our b value, but our b value is not 10. Please, that is 100% wrong. Period is equal to 10, and we have a formula for period. It's 2 pi over the letter b. And that is where we get stuck. Do not think that your period is your b value. Our period is defined by us using our b. So we have to use this formula to get us back. Now it's actually a pretty easy trick. We said if I just flip b and 10, flip them over, b is equal to 2 pi over 10, reduce pi over 5. So to write our equation, A, B, C, D, we said C was going to be 0, because we're starting at 0 here. So A is 4. We said we're going to use sine. Our B value is pi over 5x. No C value, and our D value is -1. So we have to look up the characteristics. Now, what if you mess up on the period? I will still give you partial credit. Please don't fret. I will still give you partial credit. So at least try your best to do to find out what you can. Now let's take a look at this graph here. If I want to start at 0, here's my 0. This does look like a cosine graph, right? See how it starts on top? So we'll say this is a cosine graph. Where's the center of this cosine graph? I have no clue. It looks like 4 on top and -8 on the bottom. So where's the middle between positive 4 and -8? 4 plus -8 divided by 2 is -4 over 2 is -2. Hey, yeah, I kind of did get it. -2. That's the middle. And from -2, we would go 1, 2, whoops, sorry. Yeah, 1, 2. Nope, that's not right. Oh, that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces up. And from -2, we would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces down. All right, so my A value looks like it's going to be 6. What's the period? How long does it take me to start and stop? If I follow this -2 over, it looks like I'm going to stop at, where are we going to stop? Oh, whoops, sorry, way over here. See, if it takes me this long to finish one full graph, right? And that looks like 14. My period is 14. We practiced this just a minute ago. P is equal to 14. The equation for period is 2 pi over b, because we can't use period in our equation. We have to go back and solve for b. Flip it. B is equal to 2 pi over 14 equals to pi over 7. Great, we have everything we need now. 6, we said this was a cosine graph. Our b value was pi over 7. Don't forget the x. And our d value was -2. Practice this 2-3 times. Easy problem to get right. If you're also confused, you can also watch the videos. There are 2 videos apparently in this link, which is great. Question number 5, we're asked to graph it. So A is equal to 4, B is equal to 1 over 4, C is 0, and D is 0. How nice. So we know we're going to be D and C. Those are our 0 values, starting right in the middle. Our P value is 2 pi over B, always. I'm going to say this all the time. 2 pi over B, which is 1 over 4. We don't like dividing fractions, so we multiply by the reciprocal instead. 2 pi times 4 over 1 is 8 pi. So I need to finish graphing 8 pi. Lucky for us, 8 pi is right here. If I start at 0 and at 8 pi. Half, half, and half. And last part is we need the amplitude. We need to know how high this graph goes. And this graph, the amplitude is 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, up here. Now, just as a reminder, cosine graphs go up, 0, down. We said we can go all the way down here to -4. Down, 0, up. Okay. So how would you, sorry, question? Okay, so how would you graph this on this platform? I'm going to go ahead and quit out of this real quick and show you guys on number 5. How are we going to graph this? Okay, so number 5. Here's number 5. We have to pick which graph we want. And in this case, we said we're going to use cosine. So the cosine graph is this guy here. Take a look. Do you see how it's 1 on bottom, 1 on top? That's our cosine graph. So we're going to start off at 4. Now, where's the second point I'm going to put? I can put it anywhere I want. But you know what? I'm going to actually drag it down all the way down to -4. Because that's where we said our graph is going to go. Okay. Our amplitude is 4 on top, 4 on bottom. But the problem is, remember how we said we have to stop the graph at 2 pi? I'm sorry, at 8 pi? I'm going to keep moving this arrow over till we end up with the graph right here. Why did I choose this point? Because if I start at 0, we're going to end at 8 pi. And take a look. This is one full graph all the way to 8 pi. You can keep practicing that over and over. You can follow this tutorial one more time all the way. Okay. What if you mess up and you come up with something that's slightly a little bit over, like maybe like right there? I would take away some points. I would. But would I take away a majority of points? No. You would still probably get, let's say, 4 out of 5 points, whatever it would be. You get points for the amplitude. You get points for it being cosine. right, cosine up here. You get points for getting really close to our 8 over here. So I would give you a lot of points for this. But if you, so only just to support you guys, okay? All right, we're going to go ahead and continue with this, our study for this. Let's go ahead and go to problem number 6. And number 6 is, again, I'm going to start with A is equal to -1, B is equal to 1, C is equal to 0, and D is equal to 2. Our D value is always outside, is our plus or minus constant value. Our C is always inside that parentheses. Since I don't have any numbers inside the parentheses, like Bx minus C, no C value, yay. And that's all we need. So our D value is 2. So at 2, this is the new center of the graph. Be aware. Our C value is going to be 0, so we're going to start the graph here. So the graph is going to look something like that. I'm going to use this guy right here for sine. And then how long does this graph go? 2 pi over 1. 2 pi over b is just 2 pi. So I need to stop the graph by 2 pi. So here's 2 pi. This graph is going to take up my whole graph over. And the amplitude is going to be -1. Now careful, -1 means the graph is flipped. Sine normally goes up, but since it's negative, we're going to flip. So the amplitude is -1 and +1 here. So at the quarter marks, half, half, and half, we're going to go 0, down, 0, up, 0. And you can see the graph flip upside down for a negative cosine. Hey, Nazareth is here. Okay, problem number 7. Same idea. A is equal to -1, 1.5 sine of 4x. Again, we're just working on graphing sine and cosine graphs here. Hey, Nazareth.
I haven't emailed anybody, Mr. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry about that. We're going to go ahead and graph A, B, C, D. So A is equal to -1.5. Our B value is going to be 4. Our C value is 0, and our D value is 0. Okay, so if you haven't learned how to graph this yet, come on. You can pay attention right now and take the retake on Wednesday. Our D value is 0. Here we go, 0 right there. So we know the graph is going to be centered around 0. Our C value is also 0. So we're going to start this graph. This is a sine graph. It's going to look something like that. Some crazy graph. Our B value is 4. So 2 pi over 4, which leads us to say it's pi over 2. That's our period. So let's find pi over 2. If I start at 0, we're going to stop at pi over 2. So we're going to finish our graph right here. The amplitude is -1.5 though. So careful, those negative means we're going to flip it. So we're going to go to -1, 2, no sorry, this is 1 and a little bit, 1.5. So this is where we're stuck with our graph, right between +1.5 and -1.5. So the graph is going to let's do our quarter marks, half, half, and half. It's 0, -1.5, 0, up, and 0. So the graph is going to be short, stuck between -1.5 and 1.5. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and graph this on our testing platform. This was number 7. Okay, 7 we said we're going to start at, I'm going to use this one here, the second one. You guys notice the second one. I'm going to graph 0, and we're going to go all the way to 1.5 right here. That's it. Now double check. Did I finish graphing by pi over 2? Well, yes, I did. See, pi over 2 is right here. I did finish graphing. Is the amplitude at 1.5? Yes. Now, here's a mistake I did, and I totally forgot about this. I messed up. And what I did was, I messed up because, okay, let's get rid of that guy. This guy here is actually, remember, -1.5. So I had to flip the graph upside down. We go down first and then up. And that's where I made my mistake. I forgot about the negative part of this graph. Okay, so remember, you can change it by using your mouse and grabbing the red bars or red dots, and that will change your graph. Longer, shorter. Okay. Okay, let's go jump to question 8. Let's see if 8 is the same thing. 8 is very similar to the last one. Here's the careful part about 8. The period here is 2 pi over b. But the b value is, look at it, it's pi over 2, right? So we're going to rewrite this as multiplying by the reciprocal, 2 pi times 2 over pi. The pi's divide out, leaving me just 4. So my graph is going to end up stopping at 4. My d value is 2. We know our standard graph is here. And we're going to stop at 2. Half, half, and half. Now careful, the amplitude is negative 2, so we're not going up to 2. We're going down. Down to 2, up, and then up to 2, and then down. So that's how the graph is going to go. Okay. So again, we have to practice these graphs. If you take a look at this graph down here, that's what we have up here. Again, you have to practice being able to graph these quickly on this test platform, so the graphing part of it is not going to mess you up. If you know how the graph looks like, you want to be able to translate that so the testing platform understands also. Okay, this one's pretty easy. This is A is equal to negative 5, B is equal to 0, C is 0, and D is 0. Sorry, B is 1, I'm sorry. So 2 pi over 1 is just 2 pi, that's my period. So I'm already jumping to say, hey, that's 2 pi right here. And now the reason why this one is a question is because given the situation where you have 2 pi, 2 pi, 2 pi, we got to graph this graph a couple of times. And it's cosine, so negative 5 is over here, positive 5 is up here, so we're stuck between those points. Now here's the thing about cosine. Cosine normally starts on top, right? This is how the graph should have looked. Because it's negative 5, we are just going to start on the bottom and then cross over to the top and then come back down. The graph goes up and down. All done in one cycle of 2 pi. Okay, number 10. This is when we start the phase shifts. A is equal to negative 2, B is equal to 1, C is equal to pi over 2. Careful, that's a positive pi over 2. D is equal to 1. So we're going to graph these like we did before. D is 1, so we're going to be right here in the middle at 1. Our phase shift, though, is not C. It's C over B. Well, lucky for us, if B is 1, our C value is our phase shift. That's going to be positive pi over 2. Now, positive pi over 2 is right here. Okay, that's where positive pi over 2 is. So that means I'm going to start my sine graph right here. Take a look. Sine is going to look like that. But my A value is negative. So that means the amplitude from 1 is going to go to up here, 2 spaces up, and then 2 spaces down. So now I forgot to do one step. I always do one more step. My period is 2 pi. So if I start off at pi over 2, when will I end up stopping? And in this case, we're not going to have enough space. So instead of going forward, I'm going to go backwards. And I'm going to say pi over 2 minus 2 pi. Where does that take me? You get a common denominator. Pi over 2 minus 4 pi over 2. Because I multiplied the bottom by 2. That means I multiply the top by 2. And we're negative 3 pi over 2. Now, if you look here, 3 pi over 2 is way over here. So this graph has to look something like this. This being a sine graph. So I would put a dot here. And then I'll do my quarter mark at a negative pi. Now my whoops, sorry, I went too far down. My amplitude we said was right here. That's where the graph is stuck between here. So 0, negative, 0, up, 0. So this is how we would graph our graph. Let's look at the characteristics to make sure we are right. We have a 0 right here. Oops. And this graph would have, this graph would have gone down and up. But since we didn't have enough space to graph it on the right, we made sure we had enough space to graph it on the left to at least know that I did the length, the period was long enough. Number 11, again, it's another phase shift problem. Let's go ahead and do it. A is equal to negative 1, B is equal to 1, C is equal to 3 pi over 4, and D is equal to 0. So C is equal to, P is equal to 3 pi over 4 over 1, which is just 3 pi over 4. That's my, P, oh my gosh. This is X. I'm just running around now. So we're going to start at 3 pi over 4. Now 3 pi over 4 is over here, right? Our D value is 0. So the sine graph is supposed to look something like this in general. But our a value is -1. Now, if we're starting at 3 pi over 4, how long does it take me to finish this graph? Our period is 2 pi over 1, which is 2 pi. If I go to the right 2 pi, I don't have enough space. So we're going to go back by 2 pi. 3 pi over 4. We're going to minus 2 pi to it to go backwards. Again, we have a common denominator here. So it's 3 pi over 4 minus 8 pi over 4. We multiply both sides, the top and bottom, by 4. We're negative 5 pi over 4. Now let's see if we can find negative 5 pi over 4. We can right here. That's negative 5 pi over 4. So you know the graph is going to somehow start and stop here. Being negative, it's going to be flipped. That's the only difference. Amplitude is -1. So we're going to go up 1, down 1. So 0, down, 0, whoop. Yeah, up, 0. 0, down, 0, up, 0. This graph is shifted, okay? This graph is shifted. Normally we would have started the graph way over here, but we were shifted forward by 3 pi over 4. Okay, so number 12 is like number 11. Now let's go ahead and jump to 13. These questions are going to ask you to write the equation for secant, cosecant, and tangent, cotangent. So this is a new part of our subject that we weren't tested on. So let's go ahead and look at what this graph is. If I take this as my 0, okay, going up to down to up, would that be a sine graph or a cosine graph? If this is the center, would that be a sine graph or cosine graph? This looks like a cosine graph to me. So since these are finger graphs, the cosine graphs become secant graphs. So we now know it's a secant graph. Next thing is, what's the amplitude? Well, from the center, it's going to be 2 spaces up and 2 spaces down. Okay, I'll take the a is equal to 2. So we have a formula, y is equal to a secant of bx plus d, okay, where c is going to be 0. And since we're starting at 0, that's why we're going to take that as 0. Our d value is going to be a freebie, that's going to be 2, right? That's going to be 2 here. Now, our problem is, how long does it take me to start and stop? My period here is 2. P is equal to 2. Well, that's 2 pi over b. What's the b value? Go ahead and flip it. 2 pi over 2. Our b value is actually pi. So our b value is pi. Now we have everything we need. Y is equal to 2 secant of bx, which is pi x plus 2. If you write that, we are good to go. How do I do this? The goal is to determine all the characteristics separately so you don't get overly confused. I know this is not a sine and cosine graph because these look like fingers, and finger graphs are the flip version of it. So if it's a finger graph, is it going to be a secant or cosecant? Well, looking here, if it starts at the tips, we know it's going to be a secant graph. Let's look at the next problem. The goal is to first find the middle. If the top is 5 and the bottom is -1, the middle is probably going to be like, I would say maybe 2. 5 plus -1 is 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Now, if I look at this graph, connecting the dots, is this a sine graph or cosine graph? Once again, starting from the top, this is going to be a cosine. Perfect, that's a cosine graph. So we know this is automatically going to be a secant graph. Great. See, you would get points right now if I was manually grading this, which I will manually go through your final. Say, hey, you got secant, great. 50-50 chance. What's the amplitude? Going up, 1, 2, 3. Going down, 1, 2, 3. Yep, that's going to be 3 secant. All right. You can get some points there. What's the center? The center is 2. At least I know this is going to be plus 2 at the end. That's our d value. The only part now is our b value, our period. Our period is 0 to 4. P is equal to 4 equals to 2 pi over b. Let's go ahead and flip it. B is equal to 2 pi over 4 becomes pi over 2. That's our b value, pi over 2x. That's it. Bam. So if you automatically know this is a secant or cosecant, we just look up characteristics of this graph, which make this graph actually a lot easier. All right, let's do the next one. Okay, so the question is the graph a sine, cosine, tangent, secant, cosecant? Now, if I go from 0, well, first thing, since they're finger graphs, you know it's going to be a secant or secant, cosecant graph. Which one? I don't know. Starting from 0, let's take a look. If I connect the dots, 0, down, 0, hey, look at that. That looks like a sine graph to me, right? And if it's sine, the reciprocal sign is cosecant. That's a cosecant graph automatically. (16), let's take a look. We have to find the center here. The center looks like it's going to be 2. Up, 0, down, 0, up. Does that look like a sine or cosine graph to you? We know it's a secant cosecant. Again, we know it's a secant or cosecant graph because of the finger graphs. But which one is it? So we go and find the center and say, oh, hey, look. If I connect the points, that was going to be our cosine graph. That means it's going to be a secant graph. That's why it's secant. What's the d value? We see the d value is -2. I can write -2 automatically in the back. It's 2 spaces up, 2 spaces down. So if it's 2 spaces, we know it's going to be 2. And the time it takes me to finish the graph, oh, that looks a little bit weird. Looks like it's going to take me 6 pi to finish. If my p is equal to 6 pi, equals to 2 pi over b. Let's flip it. B is equal to 2 pi over 6 pi. That reduces to 1 over 3. 1 over 3x. Bam, that's our answer. That's right. If your finger's on that y-axis, you can see that. If our finger's on the y-axis, yep, you can think of it that way. That's a good way to think about it. All right, so now here's our tough part. What they want you to do is they want you to just pick, by clicking the arrow, what type of graph it is. Now, let's go ahead and jump to number 17 in our prompt here. Let's go. I'll show you guys how to answer these questions. You're just going to go ahead and say, hey, if it's rising, we said that was going to be tangent. Bam, tangent. Finger graphs, as Brian said, if the finger is on the y-axis, sure, that's not secant, that's going to be cosecant then. This is a finger graph on the y-axis, that's going to be secant. And our last one is going to be tangent, but it's going to be cotangent because it's not 50-50. No, these you want to show work. This is just, do you know it or not? Right. Again, some of these questions like, would you show work on this last one? And I would say no, not really. Maybe if you draw a couple lines here or there, sure. But for the most part, it's just really just figuring out the characteristics. I would actually show work for the period though. Number 16, 15, all these ones where I'm finding the period, you have to. Yeah. Sorry, I dropped my pencil. Brian, that's a great way, if you have that memorized, great. Let's go ahead and do the last couple of these. Mark up. Let's jump down to 18, 19, 20. So we're almost done here. 18. So we want to see, is this a, we know this isn't a secant, cosecant. This isn't sine or cosine. So number 18 is this what type of tangent? Is it going to be tangent or cotangent? Now, I always said 50-50. If it's 50-50, that's going to be tangent. Well, this isn't 50-50. This is one full step over. And that's going to be cotangent then. Where's the center? What does the center look like? The center looks like right there. That's the center. So our d value is going to be +2 already. So cotangent +2. I got that part already. Now here is let's do the period since that's pretty easy. We said the period is equal to, here it's going to take me pi to finish. Pi. So we said our equation was pi over b. Pi over b. Flip it. B is equal to pi over pi. So b value is 1. Great. So that's just x. Now the last part is, what is the amplitude? Now at the quarter mark, and this will always be clear for you, please. This will always be clear for you. If my period is pi, half, half, and half. Take a look. Remember how I cut half, half, and half? So at half, half, and half, what is the period? Going down, count it. That's going to be 1, 2, 3 spaces. Our A value is going to be 3. Double check up here. 1, 2, 3 spaces. Yep. Our A value is going to be 3. So it's going to be 3 cotangent of x plus 2. If that's a 3 in front. Let's do the next one as an example. Looking at this, already I'm thinking it's going to be a cotangent or tangent. Cotangent or tangent, what do you guys think? Is this 50-50 like I say for tangent? Nope. So this is going to be cotangent. And another hint is also going down for us. I mean, it could have been a negative amplitude, sure, but it's going down. Let's do half, half, and half just to take a look at this. If I follow the line, that looks like 3 to me. Following the line, that looks like 3 to me. So we can say a couple things. First is going to be 3 cotangent. What's the period? P is equal to, looking at this, starting and stopping at 2 pi over, not 2 pi, I made that mistake already. It's just going to be pi, because tangent and cotangent is pi over b. So b is equal to pi over 2. Flip these numbers. So my b is pi over 2x, and our d value is going to be 0. That's our answer. Look at the characteristics. Now, will a graph, I mean, if you try doing photo math on this, will this help? I doubt it. I don't think photo math can read this. Okay. And that was it. That was 19 questions.